how bad are the numbers are going to be? 14 analysts have reduced their estimates recently.
Well, I think the good news is, Emily, that the street, by and large, has brought down their numbers quite a bit over the past couple months. When we started the quarter, for the March quarter, we were at $10. The street was probably almost $2 higher. Now they've actually migrated down to in line to our $10 estimate. I think the bad news is calendar 13, our numbers are still below the street. So we're expecting $42.50. I think the street's more around $44.
So do you think it's going to shrink for the profits are going to shrink for the first time in 10
I think
years?
numbers need to still come down a little bit.
Okay.
Having said that, a lot of that's factored into the stock current levels, obviously.
Okay. So what's really the problem?
Well, I think for the first time in a decade, Apple is not the company that's leading the way from a hardware design standpoint. Clearly, they have the best software. Clearly, they have the best ecosystem. But for the first time in the past 10 years, Apple is not leading with the industrial design hardware. In fact, Samsung, in our opinion, or in fact, ZTE has better smartphone footprints from a hardware design standpoint. The market has migrated to 5-inch screens. I think that's definitely what's going to be the volume ramp in the back half of this year. And we sure hope Apple's there.
You know, we hear multiple reports all the time. Apple has something else great coming. You just got to wait for it. Does Apple have something great coming? And is it going to come in time to break this cycle?
Well, they've been on a 3-year revolutionary roadmap. 2004, volume ramp of the iPod. 2007, the iPhone. 2010, the iPad. 2013, you know, could it be a TV? Perhaps. But even if it is, it's not going to move the needle. I mean, the cell phone market is 2 billion units. The annual PC market is about 450 million units. They already have very good exposure in both. And so that represents the two biggest market opportunities for them. So anything incremental going forward is not really going to move the needle, in our opinion.
So what's going to move the needle? Are you saying Apple needs to introduce a better iPhone?
They need to do 3 things. Number 1, introduce a low-cost iPhone to bring up the penetration rates of their international carrier partners. Number 2, they need to introduce a 5-inch device that ramps in the back half of this year. That everybody wants at the high end of the smartphone level. And then number 3, Jerry Maguire, show me the money. You know, give me a much higher dividend yield and start buying back several % of the stock every year with free cash flow.
So what are the chances that Apple is going to introduce a cheaper iPhone sometime this year?
I think 100%. Yeah,
Definitely.
I think it will be introduced at WWDC, Worldwide Developers Conference, which will in June, and probably launched in late June, early July. Our hope, and we're alone on this one, is that they also introduce a 5-inch screen at that time. Now, you know,
which is 1 inch bigger than it is currently.
Correct, 4 inches today on the iPhone 5. But they need about 60 days to kind of prime the channels, if you will. So that means if we don't start hearing about this phone from the supply chain within the next two weeks, it probably isn't going to ramp in the back half of this year.
Okay. What about the other things? You mentioned television. What about a smartwatch? Are those just farther out as far as you're concerned?
Well, they could. I think the TV will happen this year, but I don't think it's going to move the needle. You know, the large format LCD TV market is about 140 million units a year. 5 years since they launched the iPhone, a phenomenal success. Their annualized shipments on the smartphone, 200 million units. That's 10% of the global 2 billion cell phone market. So 5 years into a TV ramp, if they were to have 10% unit share, it still isn't going to move the needle for Apple.
Will a smartwatch move the needle?
No, that's about a 250 million unit market, still pretty sizable, right underneath the PC market. But at the end of the day, at a $200 ASP, again, 5 years into the ramp, assume a 10% unit share, it just isn't going to be, it's not going to be 5% accretive to the financial numbers. So they make 85% of their gross profits from iPhone and iPad. And those are really the two big products that are going to drive profits in the future.
So are you saying that this quarter may not just be a blip? We could see Apple's profits continue to shrink over the next few quarters?
I think that's right. I mean, our calendar 13 estimates assume a year-over-year decline for Apple's profitability. Now, I think this is a blip. I think they can get back to growth, but it's not double-digit growth like we've seen in the past. So, I mean, over the last several, call it 6 months, Apple very quickly went from a growth story to a value story. Obviously, $300 drop in the stock, that's not difficult to tell, but that's the unfortunate situation that we're in.